Hello, good afternoon, morning, evening from wherever you have joined us. This is another episode of the Red Base Podcast, and yeah, I know different view, and you're not seeing the beautiful Mavi, but yeah, I'm the one here today. You remember we said we're going to keep things quite interesting and dynamic. So sometimes you will see me, sometimes you see just her, and sometimes you see us both. It's just to ensure that we're as flexible as possible to ensure we deliver the content, um, you know, that helps you, to solve everyday problems. So we're continuing on the series that we had, which we were looking at the making of leaders, and we're going to the next section, which is going to be hitting more on specific problems. The first session we did a bit of just general, principles that might help you to lead yourself effectively. But the next phase, we're going to be hitting at specific problems, which I believe would be helpful to you. So today, what we'll be talking about is why are we afraid to lead others? Why are we afraid to lead others? So this is peculiar with the younger generation. While we are confident enough to do so many things for ourselves and by ourselves, oftentimes I've noticed that there's always that phobia, when it's time to lead others or where we're asked to take the bull by the horn to do certain things. So I feel it's something that should be helpful to the younger generation, and we'll drill down into why that is a thing and what we can do to address it. So the first thing is why, why do we have that? Why do young people fear leading others? The first thing is criticism. There's this fear of, when you're leading others now, you have more people looking at you, more people paying attention to you. So, the fear of what people will say, begins to creep in our minds. And because we don't want people, we don't know what people will comment about, how people will respond to us, the people who will lead, will they respond positively to us, what would they say about our leadership? So these things get us pulling back because we're scared of, when we expose ourselves, what is the feedback going to be while we interact with others. So that's one of the things that gets people, to be scared of leading others. The second thing is embarrassment. So when you expose yourself, especially for a lot of us where maybe something we haven't done before, we haven't led people before, or is a new task, or is a new opportunity, or it's a daring goal, and you're not sure, how you're going to get through it. So the fear of embarrassment, the fear of failure, that I don't want, am I going to be labeled as a failure if this doesn't work out, especially for the fact that you're leading it? It's one of the reasons why people fear leading others. And that thing is rejection. Rejection. For the fact that you're going to lead 2 or 3, 10, 50 people, there's that thing in the back of your mind. You're wondering, would they accept me? And that thing is natural because it is um, within the nature of man to want to love and be loved, and that drives our need for acceptance, the sense of belonging. So now taking up a leadership role, we begin to ask ourselves that the people I'm being called to lead or I've been tasked to lead, will I rub off well on them? Would they accept me? Would they reject my leadership? Would they act in a certain way towards me? So all of these things begin to run in our minds, and then we just rather withdraw and say, well, let me just be in my own space and let me just do my own thing. So this is one of the things that causes the fear of leading others for the younger generation. The final thing is confrontation. A lot of us don't like confrontation, and it's just natural when relating with others. It's just like when two objects rub off on themselves, there's going to be friction. So also when we engage with people, there's likely to be some form of confrontation because our perspectives are different, our opinions are different. And oftentimes, that comes with um, emotional intelligence to see how we can manage one another, manage the people you're working with, um, and see how you could iron those differences to ensure that the goal is achieved, even despite the differences or despite the diversities in the room. So the fear of that, of how that conversation will go, that okay, will I end up yelling, or will the person, speak to me in a way that okay, I don't like, that would they hurt my feelings? Um, would there be irreconcilable differences? So this fear would just prevent us from moving forward. To say, okay, let me just remain in my own cocoon, and there won't be any issues. So that's one of the reasons. These four I believe I've mentioned are the reasons why there's the fear of leading others. So let us go into how do we solve it? How do we solve it? Now we're going to learn from two interesting characters in scripture majorly, and we'll see some of the things that they experience and maybe how that could help us in application. So one of the things is you need to see how God sees you. You need to see yourself how God sees you. Now we see oftentimes the fears that we have, of inadequacy, of not being enough, of not being good enough, is oftentimes because of the perception that we have of ourselves. Everything that we do stems out of what we see. So the way you see yourself also determines how you carry yourself, also determines what you think you can do. But these things are largely perception. And if we are able to see ourselves in the lenses to which God sees us, we will know that we have a lot more in the tank to be able to do whatever it is the challenge, or whatever task, or whatever you know thing we have been called to lead others to do. Take for example, Moses. Even at 80, Moses was still scared. Was giving God all the possible excuses as to why he's not the right man, to pretty much go out and get the Israelites out of Egypt. But it took God helping him to see the way he saw him, helping him to get perspective, that got him to even begin to consider that option. Because he kept seeing his flaws. Meanwhile, God was seeing, the Moses, the leader that he had made. So sometimes we are still seeing ourselves, based on what others have said about us, what the environment has labeled us. But if you see yourself in the way God has made you and in the way God sees you, then it will make you more confident that that definitely if God says, I should do this, or if I'm being led to do this, then definitely God, who sees the end from the beginning, already has equipped me for this. So you need to see yourself how God sees you. Oftentimes the fear of inadequacy, comes from our perception of our capacity. Thinking, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes to do this? Am I well prepared for this? These inadequacies are oftentimes as a result of perceptions which have been built of our environment, of what people have said about us, to make us feel like maybe we're not good enough. Like Moses, in the Bible, Moses, even at 80, still had this fear, of leading others. He was like, he gave so many explanations as to why he was not the right person to do it. But, it took God to show him, the way he saw him as the leader that he had made him to be. He kept talking about why he couldn't speak, that he wasn't eloquent, so many things, so many excuses as to why he was not the right man. But God, helped him to see in the lens that he had made him to be. So sometimes all that we need to do is, take off the lens that, what people have labeled you as, what people have said you are, what your environment have said you are, and, put on the lens that, of God, God who knows the end from the beginning, God who created you, God who knows everything that you have, including all the strands, on your hair. So he's able to definitely tell, a lot of the things that you don't even know, the intricate things that you don't know. So if God says, do this, you should believe that he has seen the end of it. So he knows that you have in you the capacity to do it. So that will give you confidence. So when we wear the lens of how God sees us, then we'll be more confident to take on opportunities to lead others, because we know that God has equipped us for this. Which brings me to the second thing, knowing how God has prepared you. The interesting thing about knowing how God has prepared you, Moses at 80 still didn't realize that the 80 years he had lived, God had pretty much been grooming him at different phases. God ensured that he was raised in the palace um, to the king. He was a prince. He grew up as a prince. He was trained as a prince. So he understood the customs of Egypt. He understood the way of the throne. He understood authority. He understood power. He understood leadership. And yet this was him at 80, still wondering whether he was equipped to lead. And the same thing goes to us. A lot of the experiences that we go through, we don't count it as anything. But God has been preparing us in so many ways, so many indirect ways, that's added up to our experiences for whatever task that we have been asked to lead. So sometimes it just takes us seeing, um, being more aware of the experiences that we have gone through, which was something that David recounted. When David had the challenge to, lead the people to battle, when Goliath was threatening, you know, one of the things that he told the king was that he said, I have fought the bear, I have fought the lion, and God helped me through it. So he was able to recount his experiences as to why he believed, he had what it took to, fight Goliath and lead the people and represent the people as the leader in the battle. So in that same way, if we recount some of the experiences that we've gone through, we will see that within those experiences, have built in us what is required for the next phase, or what is required to lead others, what is required for that challenge, that you think that you are not able to do. So when we're able to recount these things and being more aware of the experiences that we have gone through, we would see that we have what it takes to lead. The final bit you need to see what God has given you. You need to see what God has given you. Most times we're not aware that everything that we need to lead others we already have within us. Most times we think it's something that will come out, from our environment, or oftentimes it's within us. Everything that we need. And this cuts across our personality, cuts across our pain points, cuts across, our perspective, cuts across, our talents and abilities. These things we already have. Look at Moses, for example. He felt like he was not the right person for the job, but if you count several years down, when he was still younger in Egypt, he killed someone, an Egyptian, who was maltreating the Israelites. And one of the things that drove that was the compassion and the passion he had for the people. So he already had that passion in him that was welling out. Unfortunately, this time expressed wrongly. But that was the passion that was required to lead. For everyone that you want to lead, you must have a passion for leading them. You must have that compassion, that desire to want to see them grow, or to want to, see whatever you're working towards to be successful. So that passion was already there, but Moses didn't count it to be anything. So you already have that passion, for that thing you have been called to do, or the people you have been called to lead. You have the passion already to be able to drive it, because it's passion that gives us the drive to pursue things. So when you have the passion, you already have part of it. Another thing that he had, was that, he had been leading already. He didn't recount how long he had been leading. He had been leading sheep as a shepherd. And so he already had that experience of leading people. He had that perspective of being a shepherd, what it means to lead, to guide, to guard, people. So even though he was sheep in that sense, but he already had that experience. And, he didn't count it to be anything, Another thing as well that we could look at was that, on hindsight also, he also had his staff, the staff that he had, which he often used to scold or to guard or guide, the sheep. That was also what God ended up using also as a staff to, do mighty works. So several things that we have within us, we have around us. We don't know that these are the things that God will piece together to make us the leaders that we are to lead others. So I hope this was helpful. And this helps, every young person who is struggling to lead others, to now, be more confident. Number one, see yourself the way God sees you. Number two, be aware of the experiences you have gone through to see how God has prepared you. Three, be aware of what God has given you. And the final one that I might say, which, is just a bonus, is also see who God has prepared to work with you. Moses was so scared. He didn't know that God had prepared Aaron. God had prepared the elders. So for everywhere God is calling you to lead others, He most likely has already prepared your team, a team of people whom would work with you to achieve it. One beautiful scripture I learned recently was that Bible said, God has planned it all out. I think it's in Ephesians 1, Ephesians 2. God has planned it all out. Secondly, God, enjoyed planning it out. That's your life. Thirdly is that, God has provided for everything, And the fourth thing, which is the most important thing, is that God is waiting to let you in on it. God is waiting to let you in on it. So whatever it is that He has called you to lead on, be sure that one, He has prepared you for it. Number two, be sure that you have the right people to work with you. God has already prepared the team that would work with you to achieve it. Three is that you have within you what it takes. That means you need to be more aware of yourself and what God has given you. The raw materials are within you, which you might not take to be anything. And you see how yourself also in the way God sees you. So if you do these four things, I definitely guarantee that it would make you more confident to lead others, take more challenges, take more opportunities to lead, and then see how you thrive doing these things. I hope this was helpful. This brings our episode to an end. I hope this was helpful. I would like to hear more tips on how do we solve the follow, and tell me if this was relevant. You can put it in the comment section on our Instagram page and let me know whether this was impactful. So this is the end of our episode, and we look forward to another episode. See you then. Please make sure you follow also on Instagram and on YouTube, and also like this page and share to anyone who you believe might be struggling with the follow. Till we come your way, see you another time. Bye for now.